Building the best possible US men's national team roster is basically a hobby of mine, an addiction. And we do that here at Tactical Manager TV, updating the best possible US men's national team roster every 3 months. And I checked the calendar. It's been 3 months, which means it's showtime. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to an episode where I'm about to give you the best possible 23-man roster for the U.S. men's national team right now. Now understand that any players with a major injury are immediately excluded, like Serginho Dest that has a torn ACL. Now players that are injured but are somewhat close to returning are not excluded, like Tyler Adams. And obviously, as always, we have Pete from 11 Yanks to give us his roster as well in this video. We will also be talking and discussing the best starting 11 of this roster, tactics, all in an oversimplified manner for this specific episode, and let us know which starting 11 do you prefer, mine or Pete's. Since you're in Tactical Manager TV, you better pick mine. Now, before we continue or before we start the episode, I want to quickly quote a wise, old, proud American that used to love watching Tactical Manager TV. And this is what this wise old man used to say: I always smash the like button while watching Tactical Manager TV videos, and so should you. He's the greatest out there covering soccer in America. If you don't hit the like button right now, you are probably evil. But unfortunately, that wise old man died because he got shot during a play a few years back. And his name was Abraham Lincoln. Okay, everyone, we're back with our quarterly update, right, Pete? We updated quarterly,
yeah.
Yeah, so this one's a bit different. We do this series on both channels, and they are different because at 11 Yanks, we project Berhalter's roster into 2026. So it's weird and it's like you're entering the Twilight Zone.
It's difficult. Mine got released earlier. We're recording at the same time, but mine got released I think you're releasing yours later, no?
Yours gives me anxiety because it's like I have to enter this rabbit hole that's Greg Berhalter's mind, and
Yeah,
I
it's
just
hard.
don't. I just don't feel good about it. Imagine entering Berhalter's mind. This one is much more fun for both of us because what we're doing is we are just not projecting. We are building the strongest USMNT roster we could build right now, regardless of what the bald fraud has done, or will do. We don't have to think about him. We can just think about ourselves. And that's what we're doing today. And you guys can let us know in the comment section while you drop a like in this video. What's the best USMNT roster right now? 23-man roster. The roster composition doesn't matter. You can build it whatever you want. Don't want to bring center backs? That's on you. You can do whatever you want. Hey, we don't judge. We don't censor. We don't cancel. Okay? So let's do this, Pete. Let's update.
We should also clarify, we don't know each other. We haven't talked at all. We both made our rosters separately, and we're like going to hear each other's for the first time.
Yeah, I don't know who you're bringing for this episode. Well, and it'll be funny, or not funny. It'll be interesting when we update this after the Copa America, because there'll be a lot of changes. Not after the Copa America, after the summer, even the Olympics.
The Olympics, yeah.
But anyhow, let's get to it. And at the end of the video, if I remember, I might forget, I'll put Berhalter's roster out there just so we can see how many players have made it to that roster. Goalkeepers. Every 23-man roster needs to have 3 goalkeepers, so that one will go with that. Mine are pretty straightforward right now. Matt Turner still has to be there. Ethan Horvath is playing for Cardiff, which is in Wales, the country, not that big-ass animal.
Sovereign nation of Wales.
The sovereign nation of Wales, not an actual whale on right at the sea. And it's not like, well, Free Willy, is that a whale? Yeah, it's a whale. A killer whale. It's not a whale. It's Wales, the country, the sovereign nation that is right next to England.
That might be the most American thing you've ever said in your life.
Yeah, the thing was, the people from Wales really got pissed off during the World Cup with one little joke I made about Wales. Well, 2 jokes. One, I said I didn't think it was a real country, so they got really angry at that. Apparently, people don't like it when you make fun of their countries. And when I called them England Junior, they got really pissed off at that one too.
Have you ever been to the UK?
No.
Yeah. I think once you've been there and you understand, like, also the history of Ireland, Scotland, and Wales and their resistance against England, and how much actual like animosity there still is to this day, you understand the anger a bit more.
So hopefully they forgive me. It's kind of like saying Uruguay's Brazil Junior. They would hate that. They would really hate that.
Yes.
But anyhow, my goalkeepers are Turner, Horvath, and then Patrick Schultz from the Columbus Crew. And I'm assuming yours is the same because of the giggle you just put out there.
Yep, exactly the same. And Schulte is probably the best performing goalkeeper right now, not named Turner or Horvath. It's definitely. Wait, what about the world class Drake Callender? God, he must be good. He's playing with Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Drake Calendar is he can have moments where he makes like these pretty nice highlight saves, but then he makes some bizarre mistakes, and the dude is abysmal with his feet. We saw that in the CONCACAF Champions Cup with the mistake, but you can just see it just by simply watching him play. Shouldn't be there. He wasn't Berhalter's roster, obviously. Again, it goes down to that's the third goalkeeper. It doesn't matter. Sure, they rarely, if ever, play, but we're picking the best three. These are probably the best three: Turner, Horvath, and Patrick Schulte. That's been
Right. But
good for
even if the
Columbus.
third one doesn't matter, you still bring the best one. Like,
Yeah,
otherwise, if it doesn't matter, then you bring your grandmother as the third. Like, you know what I mean? It matters to a degree of like a
or
spot on the
you're
national
drunk
team.
old Chio. You're Chio, the
Yeah,
drunk
like,
uncle.
in other words, it matters in the context of you bring your best players, they earn their spot on the national team through their performances. So yeah, I guess it does matter, you know?
So not much to talk about the goalkeepers. Let's go to the fullbacks. And I and here's the thing. When me and Pete were talking before this episode, again, we don't know each other's rosters, but we got into this agreement, not a disagreement, an agreement that we'll include players that have like a minor injury or a knock or they're like bound to return. But that's not the case with Serginho Dest. He's out till
Right.
2025. So in the best roster right now, and the reason I'm saying this is like Tyler Adams, it looks like he could be back anytime soon. We don't know. So Tyler Adams is fair game. He could be in this roster. Serginho Dest is not back till 2025. So as of now, he can't be in the best roster. So for fullbacks, I only have three.
Okay.
Oh, no way. You only have three?
No, go ahead, say yours first.
Scally and A-Rob, obviously,
Okay.
and Christopher Lund because he looked competent and he smiles a lot. but
Okay.
but the reason I only brought three is because I'm gonna do a little bit of a spoiler alert here, real quick. One, Weah will be one of my wingers, and he can play as a fullback if needed. McKennie will be one of my midfielders. He can play as a right back if needed. And I also think that one of the center backs that I'm bringing, Trusty, which I'm also spoiling that, he can play left back. So I
Yeah.
have enough options that if any of these three are not, working, even though I think Scally and A-Rob should be fine, even though Weah could bench Scally, there's options for that. That's why I only have three: Scally, A-Rob, and Lund, because we'll get to other options that I'll bring up later.
Yeah. So I had the same idea, but I took it even further. I only brought two fullbacks. And the reason I only brought two fullbacks is because I plan, with this is my roster, I plan to use a back three. And so I plan to use wingbacks, not fullbacks. So I have Scally and A-Rob as my only pure wingbacks on the or pure fullbacks, I guess, on the roster, and they will play as wingbacks. But I'm going to use Tim Weah as my starter at right wingback. So for me, it's really Weah, Scally, and A-Rob. And then if something were to happen to them in the course of camp, I could switch to a back four. And also, spoiler, I have Trusty as a backup left back in that situation. Scally can play in a back four. To be honest, also you could play Scally as a right wing back with Weah as a left wing back if something happens to A-Rob, and I still want to keep my back three formation. So I have options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with my roster, I guess that idea works too. It can work playing a
I
back
also
three.
have Tyler Adams can play wing back if necnecessary in a
Mm-hmm.
pinch.
So you're
Musa, McKennie.
essentially you're Bizarro Greg Berhalter because
Yeah.
he brings four right backs to the World Cup. You're like you do the opposite. You're like, nah, I'm not bringing almost any
I bring
fullback.
two, period. Yeah.
You're Bizarro Greg Berhalter. Okay, and if anyone didn't get that reference, go watch Superman. Center backs. Go yours first. How many do you have, and who are you bringing?
I have five center backs.
5. Okay.
Because I plan to play a back 3, so I need 5. Chris Richards, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tim Ream, Austin Trusty, and Mark McKenzie are my 5.
Okay.
And because I'm playing a back 3 and plan to stick with that for as much as I can, I need 5 center backs.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in a pinch, if I go 4-3-3, Trusty can play left fullback. McKenzie can probably play right fullback. Richards can play right fullback, although I wouldn't move him there necessarily. But again, there's options and there's diversity there with those 5 fullbacks.
Okay. I have 4
center backs. Sorry.
Yeah, I have four center backs, and right now it would be Ream, Richards, Carter Vickers, and I guess I already said it, Trusty, that can play left back. By the way, I don't want it to, but even Richards can play right back. We've seen him do that in the past.
Yeah.
More defensive, but he can play it too. So my center backs, I don't have to explain it much. Tim Ream still can contribute. He showed that in Nations League, can contribute for us quite a bit right now. A year from now, could not be in the roster. Who knows? But Richards, to me, is our best center back. And Carter Vickers is a great center back that we have as an option. So I don't have to really justify that too much. So we're going to move on to the midfielders. And boy, we're moving fast on this episode. It's almost like as if we took a quick pre-workout, an espresso, took a quick shit, and we came back and we're just recording it as fast as we can.
So just to be clear, we only have one player different from each other so far. That's Lund and McKenzie. You brought Lund, I brought McKenzie. Everybody else is the same.
Yeah. So far. So far, yeah.
So it's close.
Midfield, I have 7 midfielders. How many do you have?
Same.
I think we're going to have the same. I'll bet money right now we're going to have the same midfielders.
Yep. I mean, to be honest, there's not anybody who says this shouldn't be the 7. It's crazy, but go ahead.
Yeah, it shouldn't be much of a debate. There's one that I'm going to bring a point that you could debate, at least on my roster.
Right.
Because you have 5 center backs, but mine there's 1. But let's go. Johnny and Tyler. McKennie and Musa.
Yep.
Tillman and Gio.
Yep.
And then De La Torre, that is essentially the third option for all of those.
Yes.
And he can play on the wing. We've seen him
and he can play on the wing, which is where he's played for Celta Vigo most of this season and has been prolific. Well, prolific is probably an exaggeration. He's
competent.
Produced.
Yeah.
Right? The guy has 9 goal contributions, which is very unusual for De La Torre.
Do you want to know the argument against my roster there that could switch?
Yeah.
You could make a case for my roster because in case you want to go back 3, you might want to make a case for having Leonard Maloney there, which can be a backup to the 6 and a backup to the center backs. He can play as a center back if you need him to. So you already resolved that you have 5 center backs, so it wouldn't make sense for you to do it. But on mine, if you want to play back 3 and you want an extra guy that can play a center back, because I don't think Tyler would do that. Johnny, even though I think Johnny can play center back, it wouldn't be ideal. So you could argue Maloney, but I think most people watching this will agree that these are the 7 midfielders you bring. Who else? Like who else? Testman?
Yeah, I mean Maloney's the only one with even a shout. Everybody else is just not ready, not good enough. Either not ready or not good enough. Whether that's Paxton or Tanner, Jack McGlynn. The usual suspects of like some young players, but they're just not ready.
Yeah, none of them, and keep Acosta away from the national team too.
If Tyler can't go to Copa America, there's a good chance. There's a greater than 0% chance we see Acosta on the Copa America.
Yeah, let's not think about that.
No,
wingers. Go first on wingers yourself. How many are you bringing?
I have 4 wingers, but 2 of them are, there's a lot of them can play different positions. So it's Pulisic, Weah, Haji, and Sargent. But remember, I'm playing with a back 3, so I'm really not playing with wingers. I'm playing a 3-5-2. And the way that would work is Pulisic will play inside as the 10. And
where does Gio go?
Gio is the second forward. I might change that. Gio and Pulisic. Really what it's going to be is Gio and Pulisic roaming in the space behind Balogun. That's really sort of a 3-4-2-1/3-5-2, but it's flexible. Both Pulisic and Gio have a lot of freedom to roam in my formation. So they're not really wingers per se, but for the sake of the roster, we'll call them that. Haji is a striker, but if we go back to a 4-3-3, I'm confident Haji can play as a winger. Obviously he can. We know he can. Weah is a wing back, right, who would be a starter in my formation. So I have Haji there as a backup forward. Now, Sargent, I have also as a forward who can play as a midfielder or as a wing back. And I know it's definitely not his best position, but in an absolute pinch, he can also play as a wingback.
Mm-hmm. So I I'm trying to like just remember all the names you mentioned because you kind of went through the wingers, and I think I have all those names there,
Yeah.
but I just have it listed differently. I have three
Right.
wingers. Because I'm not opposed to playing a 3-5-2. I personally would play the US in a 4-2-3-1. That's probably my
With
favorite one.
Dest, yes.
True, true. That is a good
Like
point.
I'm
But
mainly changing it because of Dest.
well, here's the thing, and people are gonna probably get pissed at me for this because they're gonna go with like the Weston McKennie right back shift nonsense that they're like, we don't want that. I would probably go with McKennie there, and I would have him pinch inside in possession, kind of like what Pioli tried to do to Yunus Musa, and it didn't work because I don't think Musa can do it like McKennie. I would have a 4-2-3-1 where the double pivot would probably be Johnny and Musa with Gio at the 10, or even Johnny and Tyler, giving Gio more freedom, but Johnny and Musa and McKennie at the right back with no Dest, and McKennie pinches in possession. That's probably what I would do, and just pretty much don't have Gio come back. Gio stays very high up the field. Pulisic very high up the field. That's one way I would play. Probably we would have to do an episode too. Maybe we can do an episode, me and you, in the future, expanding upon your 3-5-2 or your 2-3-4-2-1 and my
Yeah.
4-2-3-1 without Dest, both of us without Dest, and we
Yeah.
can kind of expand. Maybe it can be like how the U.S. men's national team can approach the Copa America, and that way we can maybe even do like drawings and show the phases of play. I think you guys can let us know in the comment section. That is actually a video I did. It just came up as we're recording this, and I kind of like it because it can generate a lot of discussions. And I'll write this down actually here. But my three wingers are Pulisic, Weah, and Haji. I have Haji listed as a winger, even though he could play as a second striker as well. And I'm assuming your center forwards are Pepe and Balogun?
Yeah. Yeah. Pure center forwards, Pepe and Balogun. And reality is, I have Sargent too. It really is a pure center forward. So really, I'm actually bringing three forwards. That's the truth. I'm bringing three forwards and three guys who can play winger, even though I'm not really playing with wingers.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know,
I
and then
have
look, if something happens to Gio, I can put Balogun and Pepe, or Balogun and Haji, or Balogun and Sargent, or Sargent and Pepe. Like there's options there in my 3-5-2.
what's interesting is we have the same players there. It's just we did a different composition because I have three center forwards to get
Yeah,
my 23 players, and then it's Pepe, Balogun, and Sargent. I agree too. Sargent can play as a winger if you need him to. Pepe and Balogun are your forwards; they can play as center forwards only. No mention of Brendan Vasquez. That a lot of it was weird because it was like MLS media trying to hype.
yeah. Well, Monterrey just benched him for the most important game of their season.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's been okay in Mexico. It's not like he's really been awful, but I feel like I already brought too many forwards, to be honest. You know, like if Gio or Pulisic is playing second forward in my 3-5-2, why am I bringing three forwards plus Haji? It's a fair question. So I definitely don't have room for more forwards. And I don't think Vasquez is national team quality, period.
No, and I would even argue it's like, would you even place him ahead of like PFOC, for example? I don't know.
I would not.
Exactly. So uh, it's just I just wanted to bring up that name because from time in time out he'll score like a random brace, and then I think it was like Tom Bogert once. He was like he said something completely crazy of like how Mexico's not after this guy, where he's cap tied to the U.S. Something
Yeah.
really stupid, and then on top of that, he was almost like making it seem like this guy being out of the U.S. roster is nonsense, which it's
Yeah.
not nonsense. That so
And
I
with
just want
people
to
like that, when you ask them, oh, well, who do you replace him with then? Like, and then they like sort of try to finagle it, like, oh, well, I'm just saying it's something to consider. Pepe's not in the best form. Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to point out that even our players, like Pepe coming in from Groningen, for example, came off the bench and scored against Mexico, while the Mexican players that are in form in Liga MX, they're clearly getting outperformed by all these European-based players every single time the U.S. faces them. And
Yeah.
obviously, just where you play is not the deciding factor of who's the best team and who's the better player, but generally the best players play in the best leagues
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not rocket science. It's not controversial. It's just a pretty freaking obvious statement. And when you look at the roster we've built, These are mostly composed of players that play in the best leagues they could have for their level and for American levels at the time of this recording, obviously. And when we look, and then as much as we make fun of Berhalter and we trolled him quite a bit, when you look at his roster for for the Nations League, I thought he brought mostly the best he could.
Yeah. I still had an issue with Miles over Trusty and Calendar as the third keeper, but those were really the only two issues for me.
Yeah. And then obviously there were injuries. Brendan Aaron, this is already updated. Brendan Aronson, I believe, he
Sargent?
replaced he replaced De La Torre. And
Oh, Del Torre.
Haji
Haji
replaced
replaced Sargent.
Sargent, which again I don't blame Berhalter for any of that. So as much as we make fun of Berhalter in terms of roster selection, ever since he returned, I think he's been mostly picking the best possible roster with one head scratcher at best. And usually it's something like we talked about calendar. You want to bring the best third goalkeeper, but it's not something that any of us will lose sleep over. It's like, let's just do whatever. But everyone, that's all. I don't know if Pete, do you want to add anything before we go?
Real quick, do we want to just do starting lineups?
Yeah,
I've already said it, but who would your starting lineup be?
It would be still Turner on goal, and then as much as people hate this, I would want to at least test McKennie on the right back with this system, which again, we'll think about this and we can do a video. I want to explain the phase of play because he's a right back, but he doesn't really operate as a right back. He'll pinch inside quite a bit. We saw a little bit of that with Pioli and Musa. It didn't work too well with Musa. I don't think he has the quality McKennie has on the ball, if I'm being completely honest, besides dribbling. That's what Musa can do, dribble. So McKennie on the right, A-Rob on the left, Ream and Richards would still be my two center backs. Ream would still be there. The double pivot I would go with would be Johnny and Musa. I'd go Johnny and Musa, Gio Reyna at the 10, Pulisic as the left winger, Weah as the right winger, and Balogun still up top. That's what I would go with. And if it doesn't work, and if it was like Berhalter's system, which I would definitely not use, I'll probably put Way as the right back and have Pulisic on the right wing as he plays for Milan. And then I would send Haji to the left wing where he plays for Coventry. But my lineup was the one I said before that one.
Yeah.
And
so for me, it would be a 3-5-2, Turner in goal, back three of Ream, Richards, and CCV. Tim Weah at right wing back, Anthony Robinson at left wing back, a midfield of Johnny McKennie. Really, Johnny and McKennie are the midfielders. McKennie more box to box. Johnny is a pure 6. And then really either Gio at the 10. I probably want Gio closer to goal, to be honest. So Pulisic at the 10, Gio is the second forward with Balogun up top. But really, Pulisic and Gio have a lot of room to roam. They can even pull wide and combine if they want. Like if Gio wants to pull wide now and combine with Weah, or Pulisic wants to go well. I don't think he combines too well with A-Rob, to be honest. But I think that gets the best out of our two best players, which is still Pulisic and Reyna.
Yeah, and I guess we could do an episode expanding on that a little bit more, alternations and how that would work. And if it doesn't work, who do we replace? And you guys can let us know in the comment section if you want that video, your best USMNT roster right now. And go check out at 11 Yanks, the video we did projecting the 2026 roster, which was quite different. Now that I'm thinking about this discussion, it was actually
this one's way easier.
Yeah, well, again, you don't have to enter the Berhalter rabbit hole for that one,
and you don't have to think 2 years down the line.
True. There's that. There's a lot. The thing is, the other one, there's a lot of speculation and guesses. Well, here it's just like, what do we think is best, and just put it out there, and you're just kind of like trying to. And like we said, a lot of these just kind of pick themselves. It's not overly complicated.
I will say, out of 23 players, you and I both picked 22 the same. So to me, that is a point for, not against Berhalter, but it's kind of like, should you really be praised to the high heavens for doing the obvious? You know what I mean? I think most fans would have some variation of these 23. I'd say most rational fans would probably have 20 out of 23 the same as us, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, good for Berhalter. Don't get me wrong. He's finally doing, quote unquote, the right thing, but it is also the obvious choice. It shouldn't take you're making 1.7 million a year. That should be the bare minimum, is calling in the right players, which I still don't think he does 100%, but
no, it's just that also our standards went low when you see a World Cup roster that had Yedlin, Shaquille Moore, Aaron Long, Roldan, Morris, Acosta. So when you compare to now, you're like, holy crap, this guy, he improved. So we'll give him credit for that. And hopefully he continues to improve on that, or just hit the road. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. and have a great day. Bye-bye.